This is unbelievable for Calgary Flames fans. And no, I'm not talking about the Calgary Flames. I am genuinely talking about Calgary Flames fans. A new study has come out that has revealed the kindest and least kind fan bases in the NHL. And it's kind of shocking to see where the Sea of Red ends up on this list. We will get into all of that and more in this video, but first I want to welcome you to Flames Digest. I am Mark Griffith. If you're new around here and you love the Flames, make sure you subscribe so you can stay up to date on all the latest news, updates, reports, and rumors revolving around the Calgary Flames. We would love to welcome you to the Flames Digest family. I deeply appreciate each and every single one of you guys. You guys make this so much fun. Love interacting with you guys. And hey, it shows that we have such a great fan base. So without further ado, let's get into the Flames. Fans are kind. Yes, we knew this all along that Flames fans are a kind fan base and one of, if not the, obviously I'm biased, but the best fan base in the NHL, whether it's in person at the games or it's walking around the streets of Calgary in certain places in Alberta and Western Canada, and of course online as well. We know that the Flames have a great fan base behind them. Very loyal fan base through, let's just say, quite a lot of tough times. But let's get into this. First, we'll just take a look at a quick little article here. So a study, Flames have second kindest fan base among Canada's NHL markets. This quick little one is from Wes Gilbertson of the Calgary Herald. So the big thing we're taking out of this headline here is that the Flames have the second kindest fan base among Canada's fan bases, and it's, you can kind of guess who isn't going to be the kindest of the fan bases in Canada, and it's pretty easy to kind of guess who will be. But knowing that Calgary is second is great. So Casino.org set out to identify the most ice-cold fan bases in the NHL, polling 3,000 spectators from around the league and crunching the numbers on what they described as a weighted aggression index. The criteria included frequency of booing, cheering for opposing injuries, and a willingness to trade barbs online or even throw haymakers in the stands. And I'm sure we've all witnessed at least that happen once or twice down at the Saddle Dome and, of course, in opposing arenas as well. But for the Flames faithful, collectively known as the Sea of Red, these results are nothing to be ashamed of. They ranked as the 7th nicest fan base in the league and second among Canadian markets, with the Ottawa Senators supporters saluted as the most sportsmanlike in the entire NHL. And I'll pull up the list here, the full list, in just a second. But there was no denying that the Ottawa Senators fan base was going to be the kindest, as they have pretty much the smallest fan base in all of Canada. It's just the truth. Look, I've met a lot of Sens fans in my day, and they honestly are a really amazing group of people. Ottawa's just, a great city in general. The support for the Sens has been a little flimsy over the years, but with that being said, a smaller the fan base, the less likely the chance of having, some hooligans and some absolute knuckleheads within your fan base. Because let's be real, Flames fans, there are amazing Flames fans, but every fan base has their knuckleheads. We've seen many of them online. We've seen some of them in public as well, obviously. But the Sens having the nicest shouldn't come as a surprise. But let's bring up the full list here. And sorry I had to rotate it sideways just so that it would actually fit on the screen here. But starting from the left, that is the iciest fan base, or the least kind fan base, going to the right, and at the right is the most kind fan base you see. The Chicago Blackhawks have the iciest fan base. That honestly doesn't come as a huge surprise. They have a massive fan base, and I don't know. I personally haven't been to Chicago, but from what I've heard, there are an interesting collective of citizens of Chicago, so that doesn't surprise me that their fan base comes in at the iciest. You see the New York Rangers, another big one in there, Boston Bruins to round out the top 5. What's interesting is there's no Canadian ones at all in the bottom 10. Montreal apparently has the least kind fans in all of Canada, with Winnipeg being close by as well, and Toronto there. And then towards the bottom, Calgary might be the second nicest in Canada, but not too far away are both the Oilers and Canucks. But seeing the Flames there as the 7th kindest fan base, I will try to legitimize this study a little bit more in a second here. But I was kind of shocked to see the Detroit Red Wings as the 5th kindest fan base. I gotta be honest, I was expecting them to be in the bottom 5, but they're in the top 5. That's really admirable for them, for such a storied franchise with such a big fan base. And even Detroit, I mean, again, I personally have never been there, but from what I've heard it's not the nicest city, and some of the people just aren't fantastic there. But to see them being so supportive of their team and behaving, especially online, that was kind of shocking. But here is the actual, I guess, criteria for this study. So first is participated in physical fights is 25% of this study. Cheers for opposing teams' injuries. So let's say you're at the game and another player gets hurt on the other team, cheering for that. That's not good sportsmanship, of course. Engages in poor behaviors such as trash talking and taunting. I mean, every fan base does that. Doesn't regret poor behaviors. That's an interesting one. I think most people who regret or who do behave poorly would regret it at some point. I don't know how they pulled that. They must have had some really honest people. But lacks empathy for the opposing team's loss. I mean, it's sports. Come on. High booing frequency. Booing is part of the game as well. It's part of a very passionate fan base, I gotta be honest. Trash talks on the opposing team's social media accounts. I agree. There's better things to do than trash talk on social media and online in general. And then self-rated sportsmanship rankings. So clearly the Chicago Blackhawks fans weren't afraid to say that. They are not very kind. But that is how the study was drawn up. I thought that was really interesting, and I thought it was pretty, honestly, kind of unbelievable that the Flames were in the top 10 kindest. I mean, I think they should be top 1. I love the Flames, of course, and the fans. Any Flames fans I've met out on the streets, I mean, for the most part, have been absolutely fantastic, but it's kind of surprising to see the second best in Canada. That is really, really great to see. And I like how this was wrapped up here. So according to casino.org, 91.2% of Flames respondents refrain from trash talking on the opponent's social media platforms. I really like the use of the word opponent there because Flames fans will trash talk our own team on our social media platforms, which is totally reasonable in certain cases, but not going over to the opponents. I find that very admirable. I like that. 91.1% refuse to roar when one of the enemies suffers an injury, and 70.6% actively avoid unsportsmanlike behaviors such as taunting or tussling. I mean, the Battle of Alberta is a different story, but I'm sure that's where that percentage drops. It seems like the crowd at the Saddle Dome is more focused on encouraging their own guys like Rasmus Andersson, Jonathan Huberdeau, Nazem Kadri, and MacKenzie Weegar than booing the bad guys. Yes, if there's one thing that can be said about Flames fans is that more than hating on any other teams, we will always support our team first. I mean, the classic old saying is my favorite team's the Flames, and then whoever is playing against the Oilers. But it's always true. Whatever comes first, it is always the Calgary Flames. We're always here to support this team. And that's why the Flames really should always have a future in the city of Calgary, because they have a great fan base backing them, not only in this city, but in the surrounding area, the surrounding provinces, and even across the world. I mean, I am a huge Flames fan, but I also want to thank you guys for being such amazing Flames fans. I can see how great of a fan base we have, and I appreciate every single one of you guys. Now let's move on here with an accolade for Brzustewicz. He, of course, of the Kitchener Rangers, came over as a defensive prospect in the Elias Lindholm trade. Could end up being arguably the biggest part of the return for the Flames in that trade. But the OHL just announced their first and second team All-Stars, and Brzustewicz was a second team All-Star, one of the top 4 defensemen in the OHL this season as being recognized by the OHL. I'm biased in saying he was the best one, but there you see Hunter Brzustewicz, dead center there, being on the second team All-Stars. Great for the Kitchener Rangers, of course. And he was kind of walking away with the most points in the OHL by a defenseman this season. He was top 4 in points total at one point. He ended up coming second in defensive points with 92 points in 67 games. Absolutely unbelievable with 79 assists, more than an assist a game. He did end up finishing below Zane Parekh, which could actually end up being a Flame if the Flames take him with the 9th overall pick. He is a goal-scoring machine as a defenseman as well. Ended up with 96 points in one game less than Brzustewicz, which is great to see Brzustewicz getting recognized for such a fantastic season. Hopefully that can translate to the NHL level once he is ready to come play for the Calgary Flames. Because I really think since the Flames have 4 picks in the first 2 rounds, I hope they take at least 2 defensemen in those 4 picks. But it's also nice knowing that we have these really good prospects. Is it guaranteed they'll pan out? Of course not. But having Brzustewicz in our back pocket, not a bad thing at all. I love this kid, and I really hope he will be great for the Flames. Now let's wrap up this video with the comment of the day, and this one goes from yesterday's video. Doesn't necessarily relate to it fully. That was about Tanner Jeannot, but I like this comment here from Kenny Powers 277. This Darnell Nurse contract is starting to look worse than Huberdeau's. Yes, as the playoffs have progressed for the Edmonton Oilers, it really has shown that Darnell Nurse isn't even a top 5 defenseman on that team, and it's a big debate between what's the worst contract in the NHL, Darnell Nurse or Jonathan Huberdeau. Right now, I think most people are leaning towards Darnell Nurse. If he does something silly again tonight and the Oilers go down 3-1 to the Stars, oh baby, that debate will be over. Darnell Nurse will have the worst contract in the NHL. We love you, Jonathan Huberdeau. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe if you like what you saw here today, and have a wonderful rest of your day.